Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, of course, honored to be with you. We are in South Carolina this afternoon for the jealous husband murder trial for Bud Ackerman. And just moments ago, I almost can't believe it, Ackerman elected to take the stand in his own defense. We've talked a lot about it with viewers. Some say yes, some say no. Well, he's decided he will testify. He is accused, of course, of fatally striking his estranged wife's new boyfriend with his truck after the two had agreed to meet up to talk. But Ackerman's defense says he did not hit him intentionally. Let's go right back in now for more of Bud Ackerman's direct examination.
Every year we go on a vacation to the beach with her family and our family included.
Yeah, I'm going to move this over.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, let me just, And was that with you and Meredith and the children?
That's correct.
And on occasion, did you have vacation with your parents?
Every now and again, but Meredith's family lived out of town, so we didn't see them very much, as opposed to my family where we saw a good bit, so we didn't go on vacation with my family as much.
Okay, and did you go on vacation with Meredith's family?
We did, yes, sir.
And where was she from?
Anderson.
And what kind of activities did you do with her family? If you could give us a kind of a short ideas about that.
Just went to, the beach, mostly, different places, different areas. We've been to Fripp Island and then to Florida and to a couple of other places as well.
Okay. At some point, did you and Meredith separate?
We did.
And to the best of your recollection, when was that?
May of 2022.
Okay. And let me ask you this, was that something that you wanted?
No, not particularly at the time, no, sir.
Okay. What was your attitude at that point about separating, and what did you want to do?
I wanted to try to reconcile with her. We actually went to counseling for a little while that summer after we separated.
Okay. So this was not an act on your part that you wanted to separate?
No, sir, that's correct.
Excuse me. Now, at some point, did you have a hearing sometime when after Meredith decided she wanted to separate?
Yes, sir.
In the family court in Greenwood County?
Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose of that hearing?
It's kind of a mediated separation.
Okay. And at that point, what was the arrangement about the house?
She was granted the house.
All right. And custody?
Custody, she had custody and I had visitation.
Could you, what visitation did you have? What kind of visitation?
Every other weekend and every Wednesday.
Okay. After Meredith was awarded the house or the mediation, where did you go to live?
I went to live with my parents.
And where did they live?
On 1714 Old Abbeville Highway.
So, and did you move into their home about that same time after the hearing?
That's correct.
What was your understanding of the legal status at that time after the hearing?
That we were just separated for a year separation before the divorce could be finalized.
Did you still believe that you were married?
I did.
Did you ever understand that there's some kind of term called legal separation?
I did not.
Was your understanding it had separate maintenance?
Okay. Rephrase.
Yes, sir. What was your understanding about at that time about what your status was with Meredith?
We were still married.
Let me ask you something. After that hearing, what was your expectations about whether or not Meredith would be dating or not?
I didn't think that she would.
What was your expectations and your plan about your dating?
I did not.
Did you ever date?
I did not.
Okay. I just want to go into briefly your work history, okay? What kind of work you did in the past, okay? So what is what's the first job that you recall or business that you went into?
Collision repair industry, well, better known as a body shop where you repair vehicles.
Who owned the body shop?
John Ellenwine did at the time when I worked there.
Okay, so you worked for him.
I did.
And where was that?
It was on 25 across from the Bilo in Greenwood.
And what was your responsibilities there at that employment?
A little bit of everything. I mean, I did bookkeeping, secretarial work, ordering parts, dealing with customers, dealing with insurance agencies, dealing with employees, you know, pretty much everything.
Was it a pretty busy shop?
It was.
And how long did you work there?
I worked there initially for about 7 years, and then I left. I left and did home inspections for about a year, and then when I left the home inspections, that's when I went back to school for a couple of years, and then I initially went back to the body shop business, where I took over in 2013 and owned and operated it until 2020, March 2020.
So you said you did some home inspections?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive any training for that?
Yeah, they just had a South Carolina inspector's exam, and you had to take a class in order to
What did that involve?
just going in homes where people are purchasing houses, and you go in there and do inspections on the homes to inform the customer of any defects or problems with the house.
Okay. So you did that for a period of time.
Yes, sir.
And then you said you went back into the business?
Yes, sir.
And was it the business you had been working at, or did you set up your own shop?
It was the same one I've been working at, but I eventually bought out the owner in 2013.
Okay. So in 2013, it was your business at that point.
That's correct.
And were you doing the same things in your business that you had done previously, or were you doing additional things?
Well, I mean, I guess I had the weight of the ownership on my shoulders, but I was doing pretty much the same thing.
Okay. Did you do any body work or mechanical work?
No, I mean, body work, a little bit of body work, yes, sir.
But basically running the business.
That's correct.
Okay. And you said you worked there or had that business until 2020?
That's correct.
During that period of time, were your 3 children born?
They were.
And were your 3 children being educated in Greenwood County?
That's correct. My son went to 96 Elementary for a year, but that only lasted a year, and then he came back to Greenwood District 50.
Okay. And what about the other children? Were they also being educated in Greenwood County?
That's correct.
So in 2020, you got out of the auto business, that auto repair business,
Mm-hmm.
and then what did you do?
Then I went and worked in Anderson for almost a year
And who were you working for in Anderson?
for myself,
Okay. And what were you doing?
installing like boat covers and
I'm sorry?
boat covers
Okay.
and
Boat
jet ski,
covers?
Yeah, boat covers and jet ski docks, things of that nature.
Okay. Were you still living in Greenwood?
I was.
And at what address do you remember you were living at during that period of time?
The 115 Tallyho Drive,
And when did you move into 115 Tallyho Drive?
fall of 2017, I believe it was.
Okay. Did you ever move to Anderson County?
No, sir.
Did you commute back and forth?
Yes, sir.
After 2020, did you engage in any other business
Yes, sir.
other than what you were talking about in Anderson?
Yeah, what did I do after that? I went and worked for Anderson Construction for a little over a year.
And who owned Anderson Construction Firm?
Kenny Anderson.
Pardon?
Kenny Anderson.
And what relation, was that a relation to Meredith?
No,
Okay.
no, sir.
And where was that?
In Greenwood.
Okay. And what was that, what kind of work did you do there?
Just basically maintaining vacant lots, a bunch of bush hog work and tree work.
Was it, are you saying like landscaping or something?
Yeah, just kind of on a larger scale.
Were you working for somebody, or was it your own business?
I was working for somebody.
And who is that?
Kenny Anderson.
King. Oh, that's who you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. And how long did you do that?
For a little over a year.
And from there, did you have any other employment?
Yes, sir. I went and worked. I was currently employed at Share Body Shop in Lawrence, South Carolina, back in the body shop industry.
Okay. And were you working for somebody at that point, or was it your own business?
I was working for somebody. At
And
that
what
point.
did you do there?
I wrote estimates and ordered parts and, kind of day-to-day operation type things.
Was that similar to the employment you had before?
Yeah, except I just didn't have the stress of owning the business.
Okay. And that what you said was in Lawrence?
That's in Lawrence, yes,
Did
sir.
you commute to Lawrence, or did you move to Lawrence?
I commuted.
All right. Were you still living at Tally Ho?
Yes, sir. No, I wasn't. I was living in my parents' house at this time.
Okay, so this is after the separation.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you know, let me, so after the separation, I think you said, and you tell me, that you were still in love with your wife.
I was.
You did not want the separation.
I did not.
Okay. And what were your hopes about the separation as far as getting back with Meredith, if any?
I was hoping to reconcile initially,
Okay. That was your goal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you communicate that to her?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you ordered by the family court to go ahead and make any kind of payments, child support or anything like that?
Yes, sir. I had to make child support payments every week.
And were you doing that?
Yes, sir.
Were you complying with the court order?
I was, yes, sir.
I just want to ask you, was there anything in that court order about allowing the two of you to date?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
Let me go to May 6th, okay? Well, let me ask you this. Prior to May 6th, I think on or about April 29th, did you know Davis McClendon?
I did.
And what was the background and your knowledge of David McClendon?
We were just acquaintances. I mean, known each other for a long time. I mean, not super close or super friendly, but I mean, always talked to each other if we saw each other out in public.
Now, was he younger than you or older than you?
He was older than me.
Do you know about how much?
Roughly 5 years.
Okay. Did you have any problem with Davis McClendon?
No, sir.
All right. And on or about April 29th, did you find out that Meredith was seeing Davis McClendon?
I did.
And you found that out from a third-party source?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you talk to Meredith about it?
I did, through text message.
What did you express when you talked to her about the fact that she was seeing somebody?
I mean, I just expressed that I wasn't, happy about it. It was just kind of upsetting emotionally to me.
Pardon?
All right, here you're getting it straight from the defendant's mouth, his version of what happened, and testifying that, yeah, he knew the victim in this case. He was an acquaintance with him and then found out in May of 23 before this incident that he found out his wife was dating him. All right, stay tuned. We're going to hit the pause button to find out what else he has to tell us. We'll be right back.
Tonight, on Closing Arguments, more than 30 years after Eric and Lyle Menendez killed their parents, new evidence has come to light. We're breaking down what it could all mean for the Menendez brothers.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
A 17-year-old boy charged with killing 2 people during a chaotic protest.
I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All new Sunday night, 8, 7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
At Consumer Cellular, we pride ourselves on getting you the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. But don't worry, we've got a lot more than that going for us. Woo! Like this beautiful store in Arizona, for example. It's the perfect place for me to tell you a little bit more about our phones and how they can become your phones. You name it, we probably got it. We have the top smartphones from all the major companies. If it's state-of-the-art cameras you want with space-age metal housing, we got them. If you want a smartphone with lots of bells and whistles but won't break the bank, we've got that too. We even have flip phones like the Iris Flip. If you're someone that doesn't need all that mumbo jumbo and just wants something simple. And now, we even have watches.
We do.
No matter what device you choose, you'll be happy to know that if your data needs change,
No problem.
with our Smart Flex feature, you don't have to sweat it. Like say you're on a road trip out west and end up using a bunch of data. We can simply flex you up to the next data tier for as little as $5. Then, when you get home, you can flex right back down with no penalty. So you only pay for what you actually need.
With Consumer Cellular, you get the exact same nationwide coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost.
I know what you're thinking. What if I don't have one of these amazing stores in my town yet? Can I get these phones sent to me?
Yes, you can.
Will our award-winning customer service help me switch over or add a line for $15 to make my own family plan?
Of course they will.
Is it easy?
Easy as pie.
You see that tower out there? It's a beauty. And there are thousands more like it, working hard for me and you, supplying 5G coverage to this beautiful nation of ours. We know how important coverage is. That's why we offer a risk-free guarantee. If you're not satisfied within 30 days of activation, you can pay nothing. Oh, look.
New customers save $50 when you sign up today. Call 1-800-918-5644. Find us in Target or visit consumercellular.com to switch today.
She knows what she's talking about. Pick up the phone.
Now back to South Carolina for the jealous husband murder trial. Defendant Bud Ackerman is accused of fatally striking his estranged wife's new boyfriend with his truck back in May of last year. Right now, we are hearing from Bud Ackerman himself. He elected to testify as he is telling the jury his side of the story about what happened that night. This is direct examination by the defense. He just said that in May of 2023, he found out that his wife was dating the victim. Let's go back in.
Correct.
And did she have any comments at that point about her dating anybody?
She actually hearsay.
Well, wouldn't she's testified already, Your Honor? It wouldn't be hearsay.
I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question?
Did she have any comments about the dating issue with Davis McClendon or anybody else?
No. I'm not sure I understand the question.
What was her attitude about seeing Davis McClendon?
Oh, she was fine with it. She thought there was nothing wrong with it.
And you specifically discussed that with her?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As a result of finding out that she was seeing Davis McClendon, did you call Davis McClendon on or about April 29th, 2023?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. And what was the purpose of that phone call?
Just to let him know that, I didn't appreciate, what he was doing behind my back with my wife, and that let him know, we were still legally married, by paper. And then, the end of the conversation, he agreed to stay physically away from her until the divorce was finalized.
Yeah, it goes to his state of mind.
From him and the other. Okay. Repeat your question, and then let me hear that answer again, please.
The question was the discussion you had with Davis McClendon on or about April 29th about seeing Meredith.
All right. And you're saying what was told to him, you're saying it's not hearsay, state of mind?
Yeah, it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and it goes to his state of mind. And also Davis McClendon's state of mind. Okay. So it would be an exception to the hearsay rule.
Okay, I'll allow it, overruled. You want to repeat the answer?
What he's saying now is an out-of-court statement in the truth, and what he's saying back. That was my objection for the record.
Okay, so noted.
Go ahead.
You can repeat your answer or give an answer to the question.
Okay. Yes, I did call him and let him know that, I didn't appreciate what he was doing behind my back with my wife, and that we were still legally married, on paper. And, by the end of the conversation, it was a civil conversation that he agreed that he would stay away from her physically until the divorce was finalized.
Okay, all right.
I
do that last statement that I do find that as hearsay, and strike it from the record, instruct the jury to disregard that last statement as testified to by Mr. Ackerman. I think it goes beyond state of mind.
Okay. Your Honor, if I can, for the record, just also state it was unavailable. He's an unavailable witness.
I understand that. May proceed.
Now, so as a result of that conversation, what did you think the current situation was going to be between Davis and McClendon and Meredith?
According to the result
As a result of the
conversation, I thought that they would not be interacting with each other until the divorce was finalized.
Were you angry with him?
No.
Was he angry with you?
No, not on the phone.
Okay. Was it a civil conversation?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, let's go to, did you have any conversations with him between April 29th and May 6th?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. On May 6th, where were you living?
At my parents' house.
All right. And were the children with you that weekend?
They were, yes, sir.
All right. And they were staying at your parents' house as well?
That's correct.
Okay. Are they close to your parents?
Yes, sir, they're real close to my parents.
Okay. Do they have their own rooms at your parents' house?
Yes, sir.
So what do you recall? Did you do anything with your children that day?
Yes, sir. We went to a little festival in Abbeville where they had little rides and stuff for kids and did that. And then came back from there and went to a friend's house and grilled out hot dogs and ate that for dinner.
Did you, who was that person?
Bobby Scott.
Okay. And so did he went to Abbeville with you?
That's correct.
And during the time that you were in Abbeville, did you have communications with Meredith on the phone?
I just texted her a picture of the kids on a ride.
Okay. No conversation, just texting her the picture, but not a conversation.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you remember about what time you left the fair, went to Bobby Scott's house?
I'd say around 3:30, somewhere around there.
Okay. And what did you do at Bobby Scott's house?
Well, the kids were just playing. They got a lot of friends in his neighborhood right there. They were just playing and riding bikes, and then we ended up grilling hot dogs and eating over there that evening.
All right. Now, where did Bobby Scott live?
In Hunters Creek.
Okay. And what subdivision was your home in at that time?
Hunters Creek.
Okay. Did you live near each other?
No, on the opposite sides of the neighborhood.
Is Hunters Creek the subdivision we've been talking about for the last week or so?
That's correct.
Okay. And is that the area where this incident happened?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's Hunter Creek subdivision?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you get into Hunters Creek subdivision from where your parents' home is?
Come right off the old Abbeville Highway and turn on the Rivers Run.
Okay. And where would you go to get to your place? How would you go to your place?
Generally speaking, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, was it close to Rivers Run, or you don't have to go through street by street, but how far was it from Rivers Run and Avid Road?
A couple of miles at the most.
Okay. So is it a fairly large subdivision?
That's correct.
Okay. And during the period of the day, did you have anything to eat?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you have a beer or two?
Yeah, a couple of drinks.
All right. When you say drinks, was it beer or liquor?
Beer.
Okay. And do you recall how many beers you had during the course of the day?
Around two.
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 And you also ate, you said hot dogs?
Yes, sir.
All right. About what time did you and Bobby Scott separate, and then where did you go?
It's probably around 7:30, 7:45, something like that. And then we went back to my kids and I went back to my parents' house.
Okay. And do you recall how long you were at your parents' house?
I was there till, I'm not sure exact times.
Well, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, I can't say for sure.
Did there come a time when you left your parents' house?
It did, yes, sir.
All right. And let me ask you this. Were you trying to, at some point after your parents' house or thereafter, were you trying to reach your wife?
I was.
All right. And were there a number of phone calls during that evening?
Yes, sir, there was.
Okay. Do you know how many? I
can't tell you offhand.
Would you disagree that there were several phone calls in the early evening?
No, sir.
All right. What was
All right, he is testifying about what happened on May 6th. We know this incident happened on May 7th, so he's leading up, telling his story, the narrative. Let me bring in criminal defense attorney Marie Pereira and trial attorney Kelly Hyman. Wonderful to have you both for an in-studio girl power hour about this case. Let me start with you, Kelly. What do you think of his testimony so far?
He's coming across as very likable, very sincere. Asking him questions about his life, what he did for a living. So you get to really know him, get to know the man that's being charged with this serious crime. And now they're walking through the day of the incident and what exactly happened. He's doing a great job.
What do you think, Marie, keeping in mind that he admits that on April 29th, he did call the victim and said, it's not appropriate, stay away from my wife until we're divorced?
I think he's coming across very likable. He humanized himself, and he really looks rather pitiful. That works for him. He already said he's a nursing school dropout. He went into the collision business. That didn't work out. He did home inspections, but he did everything. He took care of his family. He was paying child support, and he got separated. And he thought the separation would be something they could work out. And then all of a sudden, she starts dating someone he knew, and he respectfully called to say, man, leave my wife alone. Give us a chance. And then that was that. But I feel bad for him so far, and it works. Because you always want to humanize yourself.
Yeah, if you feel bad for him especially. And we know, the other part of this is he said that conversation was civilized. And the other thing I want to mention and talk to you about, Kelly, is the fact that, I'm a little surprised he's up there on the stand, because it's one thing to tell your story on direct examination when you've been prepared. It's a whole nother thing to be cross-examined about all these details.
I am completely shocked. Ultimately, it's going to be his decision. His attorney can advise him, don't take the witness stand, do take the witness stand, right? And some of the benefits of him taking the witness stand is a jury gets to hear his side of the story, gets to see how he is, gets to see how he reacts towards it as well. Now, the flip side is the cross-examination, and that's when defense counsel is really going to come in, poke holes in it, try and, as we say, goat him to show that he was really upset and that he really intended to kill him, and try and get something that they can use in their closing arguments about him.
Really quickly, Marie, before break, do you think that they're going to be effective on Cross, getting him to change his demeanor and get upset?
No, I think he's going to remain pitiful Bud, and he's going to touch the hearts of the jury, and they're going to say he was wronged.
Wow. All right, viewers, please let us know what you think of his testimony so far. We've hit the pause button. When we come back, of course, we'll take you back in so you do not miss any of what he has to say. Stay tuned. Before we get you back to court, new developments in the case of P. Diddy. Court TV has just confirmed that the family of Tupac Shakur is investigating a potential link between his murder and Sean Diddy Combs. This coming from attorney Alex Spiro, who represents Tupac's family. The investigation was previously reported by unnamed sources, but earlier today, Spiro confirmed that he and a team of investigators have been hired. Sean Combs allegedly had business dealings with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who will go on trial next March for the murder of Tupac back in 1996. Some have speculated that Diddy is the one who ordered Tupac's death. That, of course, is just a theory at this point, but we are monitoring the developments in both the Tupac murder trial and the federal indictment of Sean Diddy Combs. We'll bring you any updates on that as soon as we learn any. But let's return now to South Carolina, where the defendant, William Bud Ackerman, is testifying in his own defense after being accused of murdering his ex-wife's new boyfriend. We're going to take you right back in for more of his direct examination by the defense.
Talked to her, she wouldn't talk to me. She had tried to basically cut off all communication with me, and I was just upset and wanted to talk to her.
How did you feel about the fact that her reaction to the separation was to just basically cut off communication, not answer your phone call?
It was upsetting.
Pardon?
It was upsetting.
You had been married at that point, what, like 11 years?
10 years.
10 years. Okay. Had 3 children?
That's correct.
And loved her?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever express the fact to her during this period of time that you did love her?
Oh, yes.
and you did not want to separate? Did you ever express or not that you did not want to separate?
Yes, sir.
So that evening, did there come an occasion when you left your parents' home?
There did, yes, sir.
And where did you go, to the best of your knowledge?
I went to the gas station to stop a minute, and then I went to Key West Club.
Okay. Had you been to the Key West Club before?
Before that evening?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Okay. And how far is the Key West Club from your home or your parents' home?
5, 6 miles, 8 miles, somewhere around in there.
Okay. Do you know about what time you got to the Key West Club?
I'm not sure of exact time, 10:30, somewhere around there, maybe.
Okay. Were you aware that your wife was with Davis McClendon that evening?
I wasn't aware. I just had suspicions about it.
Okay. But it was a suspicion, not an actual knowledge.
I didn't know for sure, no.
Okay. And after you got to the Key West Club, did you continue to try and reach Meredith Ackerman?
I did.
Okay. And again, what was the purpose of the phone calls?
I just wanted to talk to her, just to talk to her about us, about our relationship at that time,
Okay. And did she answer any of the calls?
She did. She answered a couple of them.
Did she call you on occasion during that evening?
No, sir.
That you could recall?
No, sir.
Okay. And the nature of your conversation with her was what?
Just I wanted to see her, that I didn't understand why she was, avoiding me and doing this to me, basically just cutting me off from any communication to her.
The best you can, would you describe your emotional state about this?
Yeah, I mean, I was emotionally upset about it, that's for sure.
Okay. During that evening, did you find out whether or not she was with Davis McClendon?
Yeah, later on I did when he called me.
Okay. But prior to that, were you aware of that?
No, sir.
Okay. And during that period of time, how long do you think that you were at the Key West Club?
A couple of hours.
Okay. Did you have a beer there?
I did.
Do you know how many beers you had, if any?
I'm not sure. A couple.
Okay. At any time that evening, did you feel like you were impaired at all?
No, sir.
Did you feel like you were under the influence at all?
No, sir.
All right. And let me ask you something. You mentioned that, did you go to any other club that night?
I didn't go inside any other clubs that night, no, sir.
Okay. Now, did you try and locate where Meredith was?
I did, yes, sir.
And what did you do to try and find that out?
I went by her house, and then I went from her house to Break on the Lake, and then, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
To Break on the Lake, and then to Port Bar and Grill.
Okay. Did you go and Break in the Lake or the Bar and Grill?
I didn't, no, sir.
Okay. Did you ride around in those areas?
I drove around the parking lot at Sports Break twice.
Okay. Did you see her there?
I did not. It was way past closing time.
Did you call her several more times during that period of time?
Yes, sir.
And the purpose of looking for her and the purpose of your telephone calls to her were what?
Just to talk. Just wanted to meet with her and talk.
And that's all you wanted to do?
That's correct.
So other than going to, was the purpose in going to the two places you mentioned to look for Meredith?
Objection. That's correct.
All right.
Rephrase.
What, if any, purpose did you have in going to the two bars?
To look for Meredith.
And did you see her?
No, sir, I did not.
And what was, again, during that period of time, what was the purpose of your trying to call her?
Just to get in touch with her, to talk to her.
At some point during the evening, sometime in the neighborhood, and this is in evidence, at around 12:51 and 15 seconds. Did you receive a call from Davis McClendon?
I did.
Now, did you call him that evening?
I did not.
And had you called him since April 29th?
I did not.
Was this had you already found out that Meredith was with Davis McClendon at that time?
I didn't know that prior to his call.
Okay. So during the phone call that you got from Davis McClendon, the record shows that's an exhibit, that was a 2-minute and 16-second call.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
That's correct.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, that's what it shows.
Are you aware of the fact that he had tried to call you shortly before that as well, and it was a missed call?
Yes, sir.
Did you know that at that time?
Yes, sir.
Did you answer the phone?
I did not.
Did you answer this call?
I did.
All right. And tell the jury what the nature of this phone call was.
Well, this call was just, he said that he was trying to be patient.
He called you.
That's correct, and he said he was trying to be patient.
Hearsay. Well, Your Honor, it goes to McClendon's state of mind, and it goes to his state of mind as to what happened later in the evening. And it's also an unavailable witness under the hearsay rules.
Okay. Well, unavailability in and of itself is not an exception to hearsay. Let's do this. I want to hear Mr. Ackerman completely as to this conversation, and I can't make a proper ruling until I hear that. Therefore, I'm going to have to ask the jury to go back to the jury room. Hopefully it won't be long, and we'll get you back out.
All right, we need to take a break. What just happened is he was about to say something that the judge has to hear to determine whether or not it is hearsay or falls within the exception. The way a judge does that is sends the jury out to listen to it. We'll take a break and go back in to hear what that testimony is.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
He's in the suitcase still. There are multiple domestic violence incidents.
You two hitting each other.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't word up.
He told you, Sarah, I can't breathe. George Torres locked inside of a suitcase, begging for help.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage starting Monday morning, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay?
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-765-1913. 800-765-1913. That's 800-765-1913.
South Carolina courtroom is hearing key testimony in the jealous husband murder trial. Defendant Bud Ackerman is on the stand testifying about the night he went looking for his wife and the hours leading up to the death of her new boyfriend. Right now, the jury is out of the courtroom. The defendant is proffering a part of his testimony to the judge. Let's go back in.
Okay, you can ask some questions, and let's get as specific and as detailed as we possibly can concerning this conversation that you had with Davis McClendon. Mr. Swirling may proceed.
Did he initiate that phone call?
He did.
And did you accept the phone call?
I did.
Is there a phone call in the record regarding that phone call?
There is.
All right. And at that time, the nature of the conversation was what?
That he was trying to be, he called and said he was trying to be patient with me, and that I guess he was upset that I was trying to call Meredith so many times that evening to locate her. And then he got pretty aggressive with me on the phone, said he wanted to kick my ass. And I told him, I said, Davis, you know, if you want to talk about it, you can come to my house and we'll talk about it. And then there was some more rhetoric, you know, from him about, you know, how he was going to beat my scrawny ass and, you know, this, that, and the other. But I told him if he wanted to talk, he could come to my house and we could talk it out.
So what was your communication to him about? Was it talking?
That's correct.
He wanted to talk.
That's why I said meet at my house.
And what was he expressing to you, an aggressive tone?
He was.
All right. And were you clearly been able to identify his voice at that time?
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that is in the record at this point about that phone call. Did his communication with you affect the later events between yourself and him?
It did.
And was that something that led to what your state of mind was at this time?
I'm sorry.
Your state of mind. Did it lead to explaining what your state of mind was at that time?
Yes, sir.
And based upon the communication he had with you, do you believe he was expressing his state of mind at that time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Judge, I would submit that that's admissible under the hearsay rules. Present sense impression. It was a utterance of a declarant who's not available in court. There's an additional reliability, and the state has gone into these particular phone calls with the idea of it showing that he went there for purposes that they contend was to kill him.
Mr. Bettis?
Your Honor, my understanding of the law is that state of mind is allowed, but not the reason for the state of the mind. He's clearly given the reason here, which I think State v. Weston. There's another case. It's what we argued with Brandon Smith, trying to get in that state of mind there when Davis was texting Brandon Smith saying, hey, can you call his daddy, Dr. Ackerman? He's out drunk hunting down Meredith. Meredith wants to call the cops. We don't want to do that. Can you kind of calm him down? That was objected to by the defense. We offered that as state of mind of the victim.
And I didn't allow it in?
You didn't allow it in, yes, sir.
Judge, it was a little bit different, though, and if I could explain. Yeah, go ahead.
So we think this is the same thing. He's trying to go into the details. You know, I say as a result of that phone call, what you do, but not go into the details for the reason of the state of mind. I think we don't think that's an exception. State v. Weston, we would cite.
The communication that you kept out between him and Brandon Smith, I believe it was based upon knowledge would only be available to Davis McClendon through hearsay. And that was, I understand, the basis for keeping out because he did not have firsthand knowledge of that. So that would be why State versus Weston was appropriate under that particular circumstance.
And I respectfully disagree. He was there when the calls were coming in, and he was looking at them and watching them on the video. It showed her getting phone calls. So if I didn't argue that before, I'm sorry, but I think it's a very similar situation. That's all we have.
Let's take a 10-minute break, and I'm going to look at a couple things, and then I'll make my ruling.
Still with me, attorneys Marie Pereira, Kelly Hyman. All right, ladies, I would do that. If I were on the bench and had to think about it or look up some law, I'd say we're taking a recess, I'd go back, we'd figure it out, and then I'd come back and issue my ruling. Marie, what do you think? Do you think this is an exception and it should come in? Because there's some pretty good stuff for the defendant if it comes in.
It should be allowed in because depending on what was said to the defendant by the victim, it does create a state of mind. We don't even need to really say what was said. I think the way the defense attorney should have gone in to avoid all of this is to say, did you have a conversation with the victim? Yes. Who initiated it? The victim. And how did you feel after talking to the victim? I was afraid for my safety. That might have been enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, we know the jury's not in right now. We're waiting on the judge's ruling. Weigh in, Kelly, and what you think.
This is a key moment, and that's why the judge went back and is going to look at the case law and make sure that the judge makes the right decision, because potentially this could mean guilty or not guilty in this case. And so the judge is doing the right thing and making sure, because this is key testimony from the defendant.
It is key testimony, but let me push back a little bit, because even if the victim started this by doing this and saying this, I'm going to kick your, you know what, come and meet me and let's do this, that doesn't mean the defendant had the right, Marie, to run over him with his truck.
It doesn't mean he had the right to run over him with his truck, but it could mitigate the situation and show that he had fear in his heart, because here I am meeting a man who's sleeping with my wife who says, you know, I'm tired of being, you know, patient with you. That's my woman, and you need to stop calling her. I'm gonna kick your scrawny.
All right, Kelly, so if that happens, then is it a lesser, like a manslaughter versus a murder?
That could potentially be, depending on the instructions they're given at the end and ultimately what the jury makes a determination based on the evidence presented to them. But that's a possibility.
That is a possibility. We don't know yet for sure whether or not lesser includeds are going to be given to the jury as jury instructions. That's yet to come. So there's a lot going on in this case, and I'm on the edge of my seat because I too am surprised that I find he's a little sympathetic, that I am leaning in to what he is saying happened.
This is true really quick, because I'm not going to be on after 4. You see, Meredith was present during that phone call.
Okay, let me go back into court to hear the judge's ruling.
Back on the record, the text that I would not allow in, or the testimony concerning the text that I would not allow in, that was a text from Davis, correct? Refresh my memory on that, Mr. Meadows, Mr.
He was with Meredith, the text from Davis. That's correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Concerning the conversation that Mr. Ackerman had with Davis under 803.3, I'm going to allow it in under state of mind, emotion, mental feeling of the declarant, i.e. Davis. I'm going to rescind my ruling and not allowing that testimony concerning the text from Davis, and I'm going to allow that evidence to come in. Because I consider both those to be very, very similar.
That would mean we'd have to call a witness in reply, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
As to that, letting that in, I just would like to state that that was a different situation. He had no first-hand knowledge of that. He was relying on what Meredith was telling him, and that was I believe, the basis of the objection, that it was, he did not have first-hand knowledge. It was based on hearsay.
Right, I understand. But again, I think it's close enough to where I'm going to rescind my ruling on that, allow it in. So, everybody's ready for the jury. Let's bring the jury out and continue with his testimony.
Coming up, Michael Ayala joining me for more testimony from defendant Bud Ackerman. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Michael Ayala. We're both here today giving you your front row seat to justice. We're in South Carolina this afternoon for the jealous husband murder trial.
Prosecutors say that defendant Bud Ackerman drove around on the night of May 6th looking for his estranged wife, who was out on a date with her new boyfriend.
Davis McClendon eventually agreed to meet up with Ackerman in a nearby subdivision, only to be fatally struck within minutes of arriving.
But Ackerman says he did not intentionally hit McClendon and, on the contrary, tried to swerve in order to avoid hitting him.
And right now, we are hearing from Bud Ackerman himself. He is on the stand testifying. Let's go back in now for more of his direct examination.
I believe we were talking about the phone call that you received from Davis McClendon at or about 12:51, which is in evidence.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
And would you describe the nature of the call and what was said?
Well, he called me and said he was trying to be patient with me, I guess referring to the amount of times I was calling Meredith that evening. And he got pretty aggravated, with me about it. Was being hostile and aggressive over the phone. Said he wanted to kick my ass and meet up with me and kick my scrawny ass, and I told him that he could come to my house and we could talk about it if he wanted to.
Okay. So your reaction to that phone call was what?
I told him to come to my house so we could talk about it.
All right. And that was your parents' house?
That's correct.
Where your children were?
That's correct.
Okay. What, if any, thought did you have in your mind about a fight taking place?
Well, I knew he was aggravated, but I wasn't planning on fighting him.
Okay. At that time in May of 23, how tall were you?
roughly 5'7", 5'8".
And how much did you weigh?
135 pounds.
Okay, fine. We'll just leave it at that. So that was at 12:51, 15 seconds. So the agreement was to meet where?
In my parents' house.
Okay. And about when? Was there a time given, or?
I just told him I was on the way back home.
All right. And were you, in fact, on your way back home?
I was.
All right. And again, I just want to go back. Had you gone to some locations to see if you could find Meredith?
I did.
And again, the purpose of that was what?
Just to talk to her.
Now, at some point, did Davis McClendon call you again?
He did.
And the records that are in evidence in the case indicate it was at around 12:59.
That's what they show.
Okay. Do you recall that conversation?
I do.
And what was the nature of that conversation?
He wanted to, he called and asked my kids, and first he wanted to know where I was at, you know, how close I was, and then he said, "Are your kids at the house?" And then he changed the location due to that to the Avid Sawgrass location.
Okay.
For me.
So he changed the location?
He did.
And that call indicates that it was about 1 minute and 6 seconds. Would you dispute that?
I would not.
What was your reaction to that?
I just told him that I was on the way, and I told him if that's where he wanted to meet me at, and that was fine.
All right. Did you anticipate at that point, based on that conversation, any difficulty or trouble with Mr. McClendon?
No, not at that point. He sounded like he calmed down on the phone.
Okay. And the Sawgrass and Avid Road, where this incident happened, how far is that from your parents' house?
Well, they said roughly a half mile.
Okay. Take a couple of minutes to get there?
Yeah.
And did you agree to meet him there?
I did.
Now, at some point, did you have an occasion, and I believe the records reflect that you called Davis McClendon at about 1:09?
I did, yes, sir.
Do you recall that conversation?
I do.
What did you tell Mr. McClendon in the conversation you had subsequent to the call, the two calls that he had made?
I told him that I wasn't coming down there to meet him, that I had already gone back to my house and was turning it in for the night.
Okay. And what was what was his response to that?
And he had a few choice words about me going back to my mom and daddy's house.
Okay. Did he have some curse words for you?
He did.
Okay. Did he call you anything derogatory?
He did.
All right. So, as a result of that, did you go head down toward Avis and Sawgrass?
Well,
Avid and Sawgrass.
not as a result of that conversation. We talked for a minute longer until I got him settled down, and by the end of the conversation, he agreed that he would just talk to me. And I was under the impression that he was just going to talk to me when I went down there to meet him. So I agreed to meet him down there.
During that conversation, did his demeanor change?
It did.
And what were his plans? What did you understand his plans were?
Just to talk.
Okay. And when you went down in that direction, is that what you understood you were going to do?
That's correct.
Do you have any intention to hurt him?
I did not.
And at these phone calls, at least the last phone call, you were where at that time? What location?
I was at my parents' house.
Let me just ask you this again. What was your sole purpose in agreeing to meet Davis McClendon?
To talk with him.
Now, when you go down out of your parents' house, do you make a right turn to get to that subdivision?
Yeah,
River Run?
take a right out of my parents' house and then take a left on Rivers Run.
Okay. And is River Run, or Rivers Run, is at the entrance to the subdivision from the old Abbeville Highway.
That's correct.
And did you turn onto Avid Road?
I did.
Now, Avid Road, could you describe the topography of that? Is it a flat road or is it downhill road or what?
It's kind of a hilly road.
Pardon, hilly?
Hilly.
Were you familiar with the area?
I was.
So when you got on Avid Road and you were heading toward the end of the road, did you see headlights down there?
I did.
Other than seeing the headlights, could you make out anything? Was anything else visible?
No, sir, that was it.
At that point, when you got on Avid Road, you were riding down Avid Road, could you even identify what type of car was there?
No, sir, I could not.
Were you able to look or see beyond what the vehicle was?
No, sir.
Were the headlights on when you were proceeding down Avid Road?
They were.
Is Avid Road a marked road? When I say marked, is it divided?
No, sir, it's not.
Okay. So going down Avid Road, do you have any idea what the speed was that you were going?
I'm not sure.
And as you approached, tell us about how far from, well, let me ask you this. How far do you think you were at the time that you saw that there was somebody standing in the road?
How far was I to where?
To the person, when you first saw that there's an individual standing outside.
I was at the very front of his vehicle.
Do you know how many feet it was?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So at some point you actually saw an image of somebody standing in a road.
I did.
Where was he? Near the car or in the middle of the road?
He was out in the road.
Okay. Were you able to discern whether or not he had his shirt on or not?
I noticed he didn't have his shirt on.
Okay. When you saw him in the middle of the road, if you had gone straight ahead.
Objection, he said in the middle. I didn't hear that testimony.
He just said it.
Yeah, he did.
Said in the middle.
That. But when you first saw him, he was in the middle of the road. He just said that.
Lost my train of thought. When you recognized that there was someone standing there, how did you go straight ahead to hit the person?
I did not.
Okay. How much reaction time do you think you had from the time that you saw that there was somebody standing there in the middle of the road till there was impact?
It'd be hard to say, but a couple of seconds, at the most.
So you chose not to go straight ahead and hit the person?
That's correct.
Or did you choose not to hit the person?
That's correct.
Okay. What action did you take, if any, to avoid hitting the person?
I jerked my truck as hard as I could to the left to try to hit his car to stop the motion of my truck from going forward.
Now, when you're going down the road, to what side of the road were you on, the right or the left side?
Initially, I was on the right side of the road, but I crossed over the middle of the road to get closer to his car so I could pull up beside his car to speak with him.
That's what I was going to ask you. What was your intention when you got down there, to get out of the car or to talk with him?
I was going to pull up beside his vehicle to speak with him.
Okay. So that was your intent?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you saw somebody standing in the road. You've already testified that.
Yes, sir.
And there was a second or two until between that and the time you had the impact in the car.
That's correct.
Was there any reason for you to hit the car except to avoid contact with Davis McClendon?
Absolutely not.
Did you hit the car?
Oh, yeah.
And after you hit the car, do you know what speed you were going at that time?
I'm not sure.
What happened to your vehicle after you struck the car?
Really, I'm not sure it happened so fast, but I guess I lost control of the vehicle.
Did you hit the car going parallel to the car or angling into the car?
It's kind of like a slight angle into the vehicle.
And is that the damage done to that vehicle?
Whew, this is compelling testimony. Real quick, what do you think, Michael?
I think he's mirroring the testimony we heard from the expert, which is part of it. But at the end of the day, all this stuff about what the victim was doing and saying, I don't think it has anything to do with it because he's claiming accident.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not about being afraid or anything like that. It's about it was an accident.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I'm buying it, but I think he's doing a decent job.
I think he's doing a decent job as well. For the jealous husband murder trial.
Defendant William Bud Ackerman is accused of striking and killing the boyfriend of his estranged wife with his pickup truck.
Kenneth Davis McClendon was found deceased outside of his vehicle at an intersection at approximately 1:30 a.m. back in May of last year.
Now, over the course of their investigation, detectives say they determined that the crash that killed McClendon was intentional and that Ackerman had used his truck to hit the victim.
Let's get you back into court now. The defendant, Bud Ackerman, on the stand. He is still on direct examination by the defense.
Call how you got to where you were and ended up where your car ended up.
It happened so fast I couldn't tell you.
At that time, when you veered off, was it basically, would you call it veering off or being knocked off?
Yeah.
Did you have control of the vehicle immediately?
No, sir.
And did you know at that point that you would actually hit somebody?
I knew somewhere along the way that he had been struck.
Pardon?
I knew somewhere along the way that he had been struck.
Okay. And did your vehicle end up, the resting place of your vehicle end up as been shown in some of the pictures on the right-hand side?
That's correct.
At the time that your vehicle came to rest, what direction were you facing? Were you facing toward the gate or were you facing up Avid Road?
Towards the gate.
Okay. What did you do at that time?
I got out of the vehicle and started screaming at Davis. I was hysterical. I couldn't believe what happened. And I was trying to get a response, but he wouldn't respond to my screaming at him and hollering at him. So I got down and I touched his face 2 or 3 times to try to get him to come to. And then I saw the blood coming out of his ears and I just started panicking and freaked out.
When you went down that road, did you have any intention of striking him?
I did not whatsoever.
When you got out of your vehicle, what was your emotional state as best you could describe to the jury?
I felt sick, my stomach. I was panicked. I didn't know. I'd never been in a situation like that before. I didn't know what to do. I was just all over the place. I'm panicking really bad.
And were you yelling?
I was yelling.
All right. And what was was that a reaction to the situation that happened? What, if any, was that reason why you were yelling?
I believe I was just hysterically yelling, because of what happened.
Okay. So did you go over to Mr. McClendon?
I did.
And did you do anything to Mr. McClendon when you went over there? Did you touch him?
I did. I touched his face a couple of times.
Were you yelling at him in an effort to see if he was awake or not deceased?
I was trying to get him to come to, yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have any success?
I did not.
Did you touch him? I think I asked you that.
I did.
Okay. And where did you touch him?
On his face.
And the purpose of that was what?
To try to get him to come to get him to come around.
At that point, based upon what you saw, did you believe that he was alive or dead?
When I saw the blood coming out of his ears, I thought that he was dead.
And you've testified what your reaction was. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So did you get back in your vehicle?
I did.
And did you turn the vehicle around?
I did.
And you've seen pictures about the oil spill.
That's correct.
Have you had any dispute about that?
No, sir, not.
Okay. At the point that you saw him on the side of the road, did he have a shirt on?
No, sir, his shirt was off.
Okay. Did you do anything to Mr. McClendon's body other than to try and find out if he was alive or not?
I did not.
Somebody's talking about a wallet. Did you take a wallet?
I did not.
Let me go back again just briefly. When he was struck, did you have an intent to strike him?
I did not.
At the time that you saw him and where he was your intent to hit the vehicle, stop the momentum?
That's correct.
And you've testified that it was a second or two at the reaction time?
Yeah, if that.
Now, what did you do after you left there?
I went back to my parents' house and woke them up.
Why did you go to parents' house?
I didn't know what to do. I was just panicking and freaking out, kind of in a state of shock. I didn't have a clue of what to do. Like I said, I'd never been in a situation like that before, where somebody was injured, that badly.
How did you feel physically?
Felt nauseous and sick.
And emotionally, you've already described.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring in trial attorney Kelly Hyman. Kelly, I'm skeptical, I gotta say. And part of the problem here, again, he doesn't mention anything about fear. So all that stuff about what the guy was saying, et cetera, I'm not sure it's relevant at all to what actually happened according to his story. But here's my problem. He gets out of the truck, he looks at the guy, apparently he's screaming at him. Not sure that's the approach most people would take. And then second of all, he leaves the scene without trying to get help with the guy. He's trying to sit there and act like he cared about the fact that this guy was hurt and has wanted to wake him up, and then he panics and leaves. I'm skeptical.
He's telling this so calmly as you watch his mannerisms, the way he's telling the story, that yes, very calmly that he was yelling. But the first thing out of my mind is you find out that someone's dead. Why not call 911? You first thing instinctively you do is get your phone and call someone immediately to come help someone. So you bring up a really good point of him getting in the car and then leaving. That just makes it feel like, no, he's kind of fleeing a scene, and it gives kind of questionable doubt of really, was that his intent to not hurt him, or did he really intend to harm him and then just get away and hope to get away with it?
I don't know. I found him pretty believable, Michael. Yes, you think call 911, do the right thing, but I can also see someone freaking out and panicking if they didn't mean to hit someone and they don't know what to do next because they know they've stepped in it and they didn't mean to do it.
Yeah, fair enough, but I'm looking at it and you listen to a man testify. How do we determine whether he's telling the truth or not?
Right.
It's the totality of the circumstances.
Of course.
When I look at what he was doing before and I look at what he did after, that's why I'm skeptical.
Yeah,
not so much by the way he's delivering it, but just his actions tell me maybe something different.
And there was one thing I noted, Kelly, I wanted to ask you about, and he referenced a couple of seconds, and those couple of seconds to me are the difference between premeditation or not, because his testimony is he saw the victim standing there. It was a couple of seconds before impact. Could you not argue that that couple of seconds is when he decided I'm going to hit him on purpose, or in the alternative, that's when I'm going to swerve because I don't mean to hit him?
A life can change in a second, as we can see from the evidence that presented in this case. But absolutely, the fact that he had a couple seconds, and some could argue, definitely see this as the closing, that he saw him, and then right then in that moment, he intended to kill him. He had a couple of seconds, saw him, and said, I'm just going to go straight in. On the alternative, he saw him, and he did everything he could to swerve away. Ultimately, we'll see what the jury does in this case.
I think with premeditation, I think there's some reasonable doubt there, because unless we have definitive information that he perhaps accelerated or didn't try to get out of the way, I don't know how you can find premeditation.
And I agree with you. I think a lesser is important if the state really wants to get a conviction. But I also think, and Jasmine just made a really good point in my ear, and that is, this is a 7,000-pound pickup truck. It's not as if you slam on the brakes and it stops.
No.
That doesn't happen with this kind of vehicle.
2-3 seconds is not enough to stop that truck.
Nope. And it's believable that he swerved into the BMW to try to stop the car from moving. I think he didn't think, if you believe his story, he didn't think that the guy was hurt that badly and was still yelling at him, going at him, only to see the blood and freak out completely.
That's not the story you told on the stand.
Well, it's similar to. Okay, we're going to talk about that on a break and come back to you.
All right, we'll step aside here, folks. We'll take a break. We'll have more of Bud Ackerman on the stand when we come back. Keep it here on Court TV. All right, folks, back to court in just a minute. But first, new developments out of Connecticut, where defendant Ewan DeWitt was offered a plea deal earlier today in connection to the murder of his ex-girlfriend.
DeWitt is charged with first-degree murder in the December 2022 death of his ex-girlfriend, Julie Minogue. The plea offer would have DeWitt serve 45 years in prison.
Prosecutors say DeWitt killed Minogue with an axe in front of their 3-year-old son, just days after a no-contact restraining order was filed against DeWitt.
DeWitt is expected back in court on October 25th to accept or reject the offer made by the state attorney. This one is a terrible case. Of course, we're going to keep you updated on any new developments in that case.
Yeah, that one's a rough one. All right, for now, we are in South Carolina. Defendant Bud Ackerman is testifying in his own defense after being accused of intentionally killing his estranged wife's new boyfriend with his pickup truck. So let's get you right back into court for more.
When you got to your parents' house, what did you do?
I went into their bedroom and woke them up.
Okay. And did you tell your parents what happened?
I did.
And do you remember how long you were with them in the house prior to you hearing emergency vehicles?
No, I don't. Time's hard to tell when you're in a situation like that.
At some point, did you call 911?
No, I walked outside too, but I could hear the sirens coming down the road, so I elected not to call them. I knew somebody had already called the first responders.
Did you and your dad exit the house at the same time?
We did.
Did you said you heard the emergency vehicles at some point?
That's correct.
Do you know what the time elapsed was between the impact and the time that you were standing out in front hearing the emergency vehicle?
I'm not sure, no, sir.
Did law enforcement come to your house?
They did.
Do you recall how many people or how many law enforcement officers you had interaction with? And I'm just talking about being around.
Yeah, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 at least.
There was a number of them.
That's correct.
During the period that you were there, at some point did somebody place you into the patrol car, a patrol car?
They did.
And thereafter, at some point, did someone transport you down to the sheriff's department?
They did, that's correct.
And at some point that morning, were you arrested for the charge?
I was, yes, sir.
Okay. As far as the time frame for any of that, do you have any idea what the time frame was?
I have no idea.
At the time that you had this incident down on Sawgrass and Avid Road, were you under the influence of any alcohol or beer? Or beer, let's talk beer.
I had a few beers to drink, but I physically and mentally felt fine.
Were you impaired at all?
No, sir.
Your mental or physical faculties impaired?
No, sir.
How far did you drive from where you were, the last point you were, to your parents' house?
Roughly 15 miles.
Okay. Did you have any difficulty driving?
No, sir.
Did you have control of the vehicle?
I did.
When you got to your parents' house, was that the same condition you were in?
Yes, sir.
After you heard the sirens and the vehicles going, were they going past your house?
Yeah, they were coming down Old Abbeville Highway.
They were coming from Greenwood?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you know at that point, or did you have an idea at that point where they were going?
Yes, sir. I knew somebody had called the police.
Did you stay at your parents' house until they came?
I did.
Did you anticipate that they were going to eventually come to your parents' house?
I did.
Look at the jury and tell me whether or not you ever intended to have this incident happen where Mr. McClendon was killed down at Sawgrass and Avid Road.
Absolutely not.
Did you go there with that intention?
Absolutely not.
When you got there, did you have that intention?
I did not.
And what was your reaction when it did happen?
I tried to avoid it by swerving into his vehicle.
And then what? What happened to your vehicle?
I lost control of it.
And do you recall how you got to where your car rested, or your vehicle, your truck?
No, I don't.
Okay. But you don't dispute the diagrams and the pictures of your vehicle. All right. Do you dispute? I'm sorry. Do you dispute that you turned your vehicle around?
I do not.
Do you dispute that you left an oil trail?
I do not.
Did you realize you were leaving an oil trail?
I did.
And was there an oil trail also present at your parents' house?
There was.
Was there any question in your mind that eventually the police were going to wind up there?
None whatsoever.
So at some point you spoke with your mom and dad, and did you call a lawyer as well?
I did.
And who was the lawyer?
Ed McCallum.
And did Ed McCallum represent you in the... I'm not asking what he said.
I think Mr. Meredith kind of stopped and waited and withdrew his objection, or anticipated objection.
Don't go into anything that was said. I'm just asking you, did you call him?
Yes, sir.
Or was he your lawyer from the divorce proceeding?
That's correct.
That's all I have, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Meredith, cross-examination.
All right, that's the end of the direct. Michael, what do you think of his last statement? I tried to avoid it by swerving into the vehicle, the victim's BMW, and then I lost control of my vehicle.
Yeah, I think the defense attorney was surprised by it a little bit.
Yeah.
He tried to get back into him to rehabilitate that answer because it doesn't make sense with what he said earlier. He saw the guy, he had control of the car, he tried to get out of the way of the guy, and then it hit the thing, and then, you know, boom. So I don't know where he would have lost control. I don't think those two things jive. And if a juror picked it up that way, it could be problematic.
Yeah, I don't think he really meant that.
Yes,
I don't know
exactly.
the way it came out.
Exactly.